Captain John F. Manning Jr. We changed air wings, and we were actually originally scheduled to go to Vietnam as we were planning. And we went from Air Wing 7 to Air Wing 6, and we went from the USS Independence to the USS Franklin D. Roosevelt. And Roosevelt was part of the last three carriers, you know, that they built at the end of World War II. And, you know, it was Roosevelt, Midway, and Carl C. And, well, when we first got there, you know, I mean, it's an old ship, you know, and, you know, have you been on an aircraft carrier? You know, the newer aircraft carriers up on the 02, 03 level, you know, as you go down the passageways, the knee knockers are that high, you know. Well, on Franklin Roosevelt, they were that high, you know. I mean, it was a knee knocker. and I remember my stateroom was up underneath Cat 1, and she only had two cats, 1 and 2, but and the wardroom was all the way back aft, and you know, when the ship was operating, the whole tables would vibrate, and I mean, it was a World War II ship. And but I'll tell you, when it came to operating, she operated really good. I mean, all the airplanes fed forward to the two cats, and I mean, she operated real well. And Roosevelt had an angle deck put on her, and the truth is that once you start operating on it, even though it's older and smaller and whatever, if you keep the ball in the center, and you'll land on the 3-wire, and their catapults work fine, and it was actually a pretty good operating ship. But about 4 months before we were supposed to deploy, or 6 months, I don't remember exactly the time, so they changed the schedule again, and that was the time in early 1970. They didn't send any East Coast carriers back over to Vietnam, and so we ended up going to the Med again on Franklin Roosevelt, and for about 6 years in a row, they thought it would be Roosevelt's last deployment, but she kept going back to the Med with various air wings, but we went again. It was a rather routine Med cruise. Nothing that I recall now from anything exciting. I mean, even back then, there was no action coming out of Libya or Lebanon or any of those other countries around the Med. I mean, it was fairly straightforward. We did exercises with the French and the Italians and various nations around, but it was again a relatively typical Med cruise. We had frequent port visits, and it was somewhat enjoyable. I mean, the flying was fine, but you know, no real combat, and you know, and all the money and everything was going to the Pacific then, just because of Vietnam. But came home see, we got home probably in July of July of 70, I believe, and shortly thereafter that, I got orders to VF 101 as a flight instructor.